The world offers countless opportunities for people looking to build a better future. And for many, choosing the right country can make all the difference. While salary is an important factor, the real measure of financial success is how much that income can provide after covering everyday expenses. A strong economy, affordable living costs, and a high quality of life can turn a good salary into a truly comfortable lifestyle. In this video, we will explore the 10 countries where your salary buys the best life in 2026. We will compare income levels, purchasing power, housing costs, job opportunities, and the overall standard of living to discover where workers get the most value from their earnings. Let's begin with the country at number 10, the Netherlands. The Netherlands has been named one of the best countries in the world for quality of life in 2026. Once you look past the windmills and canals, the reason becomes clear. Wages here are strong enough to absorb a cost of living that would crush budgets elsewhere. Dutch salaries sit well above the European average. Even after paying for housing, which has become increasingly expensive in cities like Amsterdam, workers still have a meaningful amount of disposable income left each month. Healthcare is excellent. Public transportation runs on time. The work culture leans hard into balance, and most people are done at 5 and mean it. Add strong worker protections, generous parental leave, and one of the best cycling infrastructures on the planet, and daily life feels less like a grind and more like a system built for actual people. Monthly living costs for a single person, excluding rent, run around $1,000. An average salary of roughly $4,200 a month leaves plenty of room to save. The one real catch is housing. It's competitive and pricier than it used to be, especially in Amsterdam and Utrecht. But outside the biggest cities, salaries still comfortably outpace expenses, which is why so many workers who relocate here never plan on leaving. Rotterdam and The Hague offer nearly the same salary bumps as Amsterdam without the same rent pressure, which is where a lot of savvy relocators end up settling instead. It isn't flashy, but it's consistent, and consistency is what most people want when they think about where to build a life. Number 9, Australia. Australia holds the title of the highest-ranked non-European country on this list. It earns that spot by pairing high minimum wages with a lifestyle most people only dream about. Even entry-level jobs here pay enough to support a decent standard of living, something that's becoming rare across much of the developed world. Sydney and Melbourne aren't cheap. Property prices have been a persistent challenge across the country for years, but wages have kept pace well enough that the average worker isn't drowning the way they would on a similar salary in London or Los Angeles. A single person can expect to spend around $1,500 a month excluding rent against an average monthly salary near $5,000, leaving a solid cushion most months. Beyond the money, there's the lifestyle itself. Beaches minutes from major cities, a relaxed social culture, and a healthcare system that won't bankrupt you if something goes wrong. Add strong labor protections and an economy that has avoided the worst of the world's recent financial turbulence, and Australia earns its reputation as a country where a good salary actually feels good, not just on paper. What really sets Australia apart is how little of that income gets swallowed by fear, since sick leave is generous and superannuation quietly builds a retirement cushion in the background. Cities like Brisbane and Adelaide offer nearly the same job market as Sydney with noticeably lower rent, which is why a growing number of workers choose to plant roots there instead. Number 8, Denmark. Denmark combines a purchasing power index of 146.6 with something most countries on this list can't match, a strong sense of financial security. Taxes here run high, but that's the trade. In return, healthcare, education, and childcare are either free or heavily subsidized, meaning a Danish salary doesn't have to cover the things that quietly drain paychecks everywhere else. Copenhagen isn't cheap to live in. Monthly costs excluding rent land around $1,400, but wages are built to match, with average salaries close to $5,500 a month, and the social safety net means nobody is one bad month away from disaster. Work culture here treats overtime as a failure of planning rather than a badge of honor, and the result is a population that consistently ranks among the happiest on earth. For anyone who's ever felt their salary vanish the moment it hits their account, covering childcare, insurance, and emergency costs no one warned them about, Denmark shows what happens when a country builds its economy around removing that fear from the start. The math here only makes sense once you stop comparing gross salaries and start comparing what's actually left after the bills most countries force you to pay privately. A Danish worker rarely worries about losing everything to a medical emergency because the system absorbs that shock collectively instead of individually. It isn't the highest salary on this list, but it might be the one where the money goes furthest toward actual peace of mind. Number 7. The United States. This one might surprise people who've heard endless headlines about the cost of living crisis in America. The US still holds a local purchasing power index of 146, meaning salaries here go noticeably further than the global average once you account for what people actually earn. The catch, and it's a real one, is that this number hides massive variation from state to state. A salary that feels enormous in Ohio or Texas might barely cover rent in San Francisco or New York. But step outside the handful of famously expensive coastal cities, and the picture changes fast. High wages, lower state taxes in places like Texas and Florida, and living costs that stay reasonable across most of the country. A single person can live on around $1,300 a month, excluding rent, while the average salary sits close to $5,800 a month before tax. Healthcare remains the biggest wild card. Employer coverage can make a huge difference, and it's the one expense that can undo all the other advantages if you're not careful. Still, for anyone earning well outside the priciest zip codes, America remains one of the most financially rewarding countries on the planet to build a career in. The sheer scale of the country is what makes this ranking work. A mid-level engineer in Austin or Raleigh can earn close to what their counterpart makes in San Francisco while paying a fraction of the rent, and remote work has only sharpened that gap further. The trade-off is that none of this comes with a built-in safety net the way it does in Europe, so the upside is real, but so is the risk if your circumstances change. Number 6. Norway. Norway ranks 4th in Europe for the balance between salary and expenses, backed by a purchasing power index of 124.7. A huge part of that comes down to oil wealth being funneled into public services rather than sitting untouched. Wages here are among the highest in Europe, and while grocery bills and restaurant prices can shock first-time visitors, the numbers still work because incomes are built to match. Monthly costs, excluding rent, average around $1,350, against salaries that often clear $5,600 a month. Healthcare is largely public, university education is free, and the country's sovereign wealth fund, the largest in the world, quietly backstops the entire economy. Oslo isn't a budget city by any measure, but the trade-off is a level of financial security that's hard to find elsewhere. Low crime, clean cities, and a government that genuinely reinvests in its people rather than just talking about it. For anyone chasing long-term stability over flashy short-term savings, Norway is close to unmatched. What makes Norway so unusual is how deliberately the wealth gets spread around. The government's oil fund is worth well over $1 trillion, and instead of hoarding it, the country uses it to fund pensions, hospitals, and infrastructure decades into the future. Fjords and mountains are never more than a short drive away, which turns weekends into a built-in escape rather than an expensive trip you have to plan for. It's expensive, no question, but it might be one of the only places where the expense genuinely buys you something back. Number 5. Ireland. Ireland has become one of Europe's quiet financial success stories, landing firmly in the top 10 for purchasing power thanks to strong wages and a corporate tax policy that has pulled in some of the biggest employers on earth. Dublin now hosts European headquarters for major tech and pharmaceutical companies, and the salaries that come with those jobs are built to match a genuinely European cost of living, not a discounted one. A single person spends around $1,200 a month excluding rent, while average salaries in skilled sectors often land above $4,800 a month, leaving solid room to save even after Dublin's notoriously tight rental market takes its cut. Beyond the paycheck, Ireland offers English as the primary language, making relocation far smoother for a huge share of the global workforce, along with a friendly culture, reliable healthcare, and easy access to the rest of Europe. Housing remains the one real pressure point nationwide, but wages have kept climbing to offset it. For anyone chasing an English-speaking foothold in the EU, Ireland remains one of the smartest financial moves on this entire list. The corporate tax rate that lured in giants like Google, Meta, and Pfizer built an entire ecosystem of well-paying support roles that didn't exist a generation ago. Cork and Galway have started absorbing the overflow from Dublin's housing crunch, offering nearly the same salary bands with far less competition for apartments. Ireland is no longer just a backup option for English speakers. It's one of the smartest first choices on the continent. Number 4. The United Kingdom. A country where a strong salary still has to work hard against a steep cost of living. The UK's biggest advantage is its sheer economic weight. London remains one of the world's top financial and business hubs, pulling in banking, law, and tech jobs that pay well above the national average. A local purchasing power index hovering in the low 100s tells the real story. Wages are solid, but they don't stretch nearly as far as they do in Switzerland or the Netherlands once rent enters the picture. Monthly expenses excluding rent average around $1,200, while the average salary sits close to $3,800 a month before tax. A gap that feels comfortable outside London, but far tighter inside it. Rent in the capital can swallow a huge share of that paycheck, with one-bedroom flats in zones close to the center easily running past $2,000 a month, which is exactly why so many workers commute in from cheaper towns instead of living where they work. Add safety nets like the NHS, free at the point of use, and it becomes clear why the UK isn't just about the raw numbers. It's become the place where a mid-tier salary can still buy a genuinely comfortable life, provided you're smart about where you actually live. What really complicates the picture is how much that cost of living splits by region. A worker earning the same salary in Manchester or Leeds can live noticeably better than someone in London, simply because the rent isn't eating half the paycheck before anything else gets paid. The country has also leaned into remote and hybrid work harder than most of Europe, letting people keep London-level salaries while living somewhere the rent barely registers by comparison. It's not the flashiest entry on this list, since the tax burden and the weather rule out plenty of people, but for anyone whose goal is balancing a solid income against one of Europe's most established economies, the UK still holds its own. Number 3. Luxembourg. Luxembourg leads all of Europe in purchasing power, with monthly earnings adjusted for living costs exceeding $9,300, a level few countries come close to matching. This tiny nation punches far above its size, thanks to its role as a global financial hub. Banking, investment, and EU institutions have turned it into one of the wealthiest countries per capita on the planet. Public transportation is entirely free nationwide, a small but telling detail about how the country treats its residents, and healthcare and education rank among the best in Europe. Monthly living costs, excluding rent, sit around $1,100, modest next to those salary figures. Housing has climbed as more people discover what Luxembourg offers, but wages have climbed right alongside it, keeping the balance firmly in workers' favor. For anyone chasing a European lifestyle without the usual European financial stress, Luxembourg quietly outperforms almost everywhere else on the continent. Part of what makes this work is sheer geography. Bordered by France, Germany, and Belgium, Luxembourg relies heavily on cross-border commuters. Because many workers live outside the country, housing demand remains more manageable even as wages continue to climb. For a country most people couldn't point to on a map a decade ago, it's quietly become one of the best-kept financial secrets in Europe. Number 2. Iceland. Iceland might be the most surprising entry on this entire list. A country of under 400,000 people that ranks second in the world for overall human prosperity. That prosperity translates directly into how far a salary actually stretches. Yes, groceries and imported goods carry a real premium here, since the country sits on a remote island and relies heavily on shipping everything in. But wages have climbed to match that reality almost perfectly. A single person spends around $1,300 a month excluding rent, while average salaries frequently exceed $5,400 a month, leaving a comfortable gap that keeps growing as the economy expands. Beyond the numbers, Iceland offers near-zero crime, geothermal energy that keeps utility bills surprisingly low despite the cold climate, and a healthcare system funded almost entirely through taxes that residents barely think twice about. Reykjavik remains small and tight-knit, the kind of place where career networking happens organically rather than through cold emails. For anyone chasing financial security wrapped in dramatic landscapes and genuine safety, Iceland delivers in a way few small countries ever manage. The tourism boom of the last decade has poured money into the economy without pricing out locals, largely because wages rose right alongside the industry. Crime is so low that leaving a car unlocked barely registers as a risk. It's proof that you don't need a massive economy to build one of the best qualities of life on the planet. Number 1. Switzerland. Switzerland earns its place here almost by defying logic. It's one of the most expensive countries on the planet, yet it still ranks at the very top for purchasing power because wages are simply that high. With a local purchasing power index of 170.6, the average worker in Switzerland can afford roughly 70% more than someone earning a comparable salary in New York, despite groceries, rent, and daily expenses running well above the global norm. Zurich and Geneva regularly top the list of the world's most expensive cities. Monthly costs excluding rent can reach $1,800, but salaries here aren't measured on the same scale as everywhere else. Average pay often clears $7,500 a month, meaning a mid-level professional can out-earn a senior manager in most other countries. Add rock-solid infrastructure, some of the best healthcare on earth, and one of the lowest crime rates in Europe, and you get a country where the sticker shock fades fast once the paycheck actually lands. This is proof that a high cost of living and a genuinely comfortable life aren't opposites, as long as income keeps pace with it every month. What's easy to miss from the outside is how stable this all is. Swiss unemployment has stayed remarkably low for decades, and the currency is considered one of the safest in the world. Smaller cities like Basel or Lausanne offer nearly the same salary bands as Zurich with a gentler cost of living, which is where a lot of expats end up settling. It's an expensive ticket to get in, but once you're earning in francs, almost nowhere else compares to what's left over at the end of the month. That was our ranking of the 10 countries where your salary buys the best life in 2026. We hope this list gave you a better understanding of where income, living costs, and quality of life come together to create the best opportunities. At last, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.